when interest rates started soaring, none of you remember this, but the prime rate got to 21%. By that time, I had been on Channel 26, a little stock market show. Then I got on Channel 5. It was a whole big thing. And I was trading at the IMM in the Treasury bill pit. 6-month T-bill auction happened at 12:30 in the afternoon. The results, because they couldn't tabulate them very quickly, weren't released till about 6:30 or 7 at night. And in those days, they were just beginning to have money market accounts. The only way depositors, those who had $10,000, could earn more than 5% at a bank or 5.25% at a savings and loan was they could buy a 6-month CD based on the 6-month Treasury bill rate. That rate was announced every night, Monday night at 6:30, and on Tuesday the rates changed. Well, I went, wait a minute. I'm trading in the pits. I'm trading Treasury bills. Are those same Treasury bills? So I went into the NBC producer and said, I want to be the kicker, the last story on Monday at noon. And they said, what is it? I said, I'll explain it later. Okay, they thought I was. So I would get on TV. I'd call down to a friend in the pit, just as I came over a few blocks to the NBC at Merchandise Mart. And he'd say, yeah, it looks like the auction's going to come in at 8:25, maybe 8:27. But last week's auction was 8:02. So everybody had a CD maturing. If they renewed it that day, they would, or anybody buying a new CD that day would get 8:02. But if they waited till it was announced the next day, which I knew was going to be 1/4 point higher, they would get a higher rate. So I'd say, if you have a CD maturing today, don't renew it today. Wait till tomorrow. Rates will be 1/4 point higher. Everybody thought I was a genius. I can't tell the story to too many people, but that was in the days when the communications didn't work. Or I'd say, your CD is maturing, renew it today. Tomorrow they're going to be a bit lower for the next 6 months. I was never wrong. I mean, it was just. Once I get a call. This is Fire Engine Company 72. We were all called out on a run. Well, what's going to happen to interest rates tomorrow? So somewhere along the line, I got the reputation for knowing a lot of stuff when I wasn't really a good trader. And I realized I was a much better long-term investor and that my gift was communicating these things. I didn't have the trader gene, but I had some kind of an ability to communicate in an era when all of a sudden, back in the early 80s, people were being required to make decisions about mortgages, things fluctuated, about CDs, about, 401ks just started in the early mid-80s. And so people had to make decisions about investing. And that led to the syndicated column for 30 years, 4 books. The newest edition, the 3rd edition of The Savage Truth on Money came out just 2 months ago. I did read it into Audible. And that was a week of a lot of throat lozenges. And the savage truths didn't change that much over the years. But what really changed was the technology. And the last edition was about 8 or 9 years old, and it didn't have robo-advisors in it. It didn't have apps in it. There was no word about cryptocurrencies in it. So I realized that all the basic truths had to be the same. There really needed to be an update. So I hope, because I make nothing on this, and whatever that comes over the wholesaler cost is going right to your charity. I hope that you will get them and I will sign them, not because I want to sell books, but because I know if it's not you, it's maybe someone you know, maybe just starting out. But there's some sophisticated stuff too. So now I was given, that's enough of old times. I was given a quick little challenge here, and we've already used up a lot of time. And about what I would say to a group of what I know are smart. You have to be really smart to be in this business. You have to be reasonably sophisticated about the world of finances. Don't forget, I talk to a lot of audiences. So I created something new, and I'm going to go through it quickly and then leave time for questions if you want to stay. And I decided to call it What Smart Women Need to Know About Money. And I came up with 6 things. And I will leave time for questions afterwards, but these are 6 sort of principal things. Some of them may seem, I hope some of them seem so basic to you that you'll think, but I knew that. But I will tell someone else. You're all now challenged and deputized to tell someone else. And some of them, maybe you haven't thought about, so let me go through them. But I want to start out where I always start every single talk. I started doing this after 9/11, and say this. don't bet against America. You know, we live in, wherever you stand politically, we live in a lot of turmoil now. But America's been through a lot of turmoil. When I started out, we thought it was all over because of the Vietnam War. We had the massive inflation of the early 80s. We had the gas shortages and people waiting in line at the pumps, and now we're exporting energy. America's really a great country, and we'll get through this too, and so will you. So America will survive and prosper, and so will you if you plan, save, and invest. Now, if I'm wrong about that basic principle, there's no point about planning at all, you know, okay? Eat, love, and live, and all that stuff. But I really believe that we all want to get there without being the bag lady. And these are the basic things I think you need to know. Let me start out by the context of this. Yeah, it'd be great to win the lottery, and we all know multimillionaires and probably a few billionaires and people who've made a lot of money. That may or may not happen to some of you. It would be great if the next generation of female writers were writing about the next generation of female billionaires, and I think that would be terrific. But basically, I think what I've distilled it down to is whatever your level of comfort of living, you want financial security, which I call peace of mind. So you're not up in the middle of the night wondering what would happen if, or how could I do that? You are not part of the generation, I hope, for goodness sakes, that couldn't last for a $400 emergency expense, wouldn't even know how to come up with the cash. But just a year ago, is it just last year? Yeah, when we had the government shut down the military, well, people who had really good jobs, the military, they have jobs, they have benefits, they have health care. There was a hue and cry. They wouldn't be able to make their mortgage payments the next month. So there are a lot of people who are living right on the edge. I'm just going to hope that's not you. But to me, the idea is that you don't wake up in the middle of the night wondering, how am I going to pay for college? How am I going to help my parents and my kids? That kind of a thing. So here's the first thing you need to know. It's not going to be a factual thing. You need to know who you are and your own money personality. It's baked into you. I can't change that now. You can't change it either. I think there are basically two categories in the world. They are the savers and the spenders. If you're married, for better or for worse, they tend to marry each other, and that's why you get fights over money. And you know, for some people, some things are easy. Traders on the floor, you know, I see traders here. I admire that. It was never my thing. But while I may not decide to be a trader or not decide to be a fashionista or whatever it might be, though, you know, that doesn't interest me. What really is important is that we all need to manage our money. You're all working, you all have money coming in, you all have money going out, and you all have hopes and dreams. So you have to set up systems. So the first thing, whatever you know about money or whatever you want for your life, doesn't matter at all if you don't have self-discipline. Self-discipline is the essence of all decision making, just like on a diet. You could start a dozen times until you have the self-discipline and you turn down that first brownie. That's my thing. You're not really on it. So you need to set up systems for your money that make it easier for you. If you're a saver, this is already easy. But if you're not, then this is what you have to do. So the systems and the discipline are critical. I'm not talking about picking stocks or being better than anyone else on the trading floor. I'm talking about managing the $1 million or more that's going to flow through your account. I mean, $100,000 a year, $50,000 a year in a 25-year career, a lot of money is going to flow through there. You want to get it diverted automatically in a plan so that it can start working for you instead of you working for it. So the first thing is to set up a system, and today it's got to be technology. So Quicken lives on your desktop. It's a subscription model now. You can't lose your stuff if you don't renew your subscription on time. But if you live on a desktop and you want it there, and you really want the fullest suite of things that you can do with your money and your investments in terms of tracking, go subscribe to Quicken. Mint was the next generation. It barely made my last edition of the book. It was on everybody's handheld. People were just thinking, amazing that you could do this. Mint is a free model, and it categorizes your spending. And if you're standing at the bar before you go out to dinner and the hostess says your table's ready, and you say, you go on, I'll get the bar tab, and you put your credit card in and pick up the bar tab at the bar, you're going to get a ding. This is Mint. You've just overspent your entertainment category. Do not go out for dinner. So that's how Mint works. And you need to see this. It really works, and it's free. And their model is they're going to send you ads for credit card deals or mortgage refinancing and so forth. That's not too annoying. And just now, Quicken is no longer part of Intuit. It spun off into a separate company. Intuit kept Mint. So Intuit just, so Quicken just came up with a brand new thing. I just wrote a column about it. It'll run next week, called Simplify. And it has a really fascinating platform. And it costs $3.99 a month or something like that. And if you haven't downloaded either Mint, the app, or Simplify, the app, you should do that. You should be, obviously, I know you're all paying your bills online. 15, 20 years ago, I did a national tour for check-free and worked with every bank in the country, going on morning TV in Omaha saying, Sally and Tom, do you pay your bills online? No, isn't that dangerous? No, it's easy, and you won't have to put a stamp on it, and you won't have to seal the envelope and realize you put the address in backward, and the banks transfer trillions of dollars on this same wire system, so it's safe and secure. Go to your bank and learn how to download that's how far we've come in my lifetime. You need to do this. You need to set up a system. Of course, you're paying your bills online. Oops, let me go back. Next, you have to know where everything is. This is not funny anymore. You all have 401k access, I would guess. You should all be contributing to get the maximum match. But how do you know what to invest in within your 401k plan? People I talk to, well, yeah, I'm doing it. Are you getting the max match? I think so. Well, not all companies. I speak for companies all over the country. And they'll say 80% of our people are getting the maximum match. And I want to say, dummies, it's free money. You wouldn't walk over a $100 bill on the street. So check out your 401k. You can get advice. You don't have to find an advisor or a broker who wants to sell you something. Go to the robo-advisors. Go to Personal Capital or Wealthfront. And set up there so you can get at least a little bit of, you should be in these funds or those funds. Now, if you really want to get into this seriously, there's an army of financial salespeople out there want to sell you something. They call themselves financial advisors, financial planners, and they get paid in a lot of different ways. Some of them charge fees. Some of them charge commissions on the products and show you the commissions. Some of them sell you stuff and say, see, no commission, but it's buried in there and you're locked in forever. They're all getting paid. You want to find an advisor who is a fiduciary. It's a brand new buzzword of the decade. Fiduciary is someone who agrees in writing to put your interests ahead of their own and to fully disclose all fees and commissions. There's a whole, and in this book, there was never the last edition, I don't think the word fiduciary appeared. This one has a whole chapter on finding a fiduciary advisor. So I'm not going to go into all the details, but nobody expects you just because you work in derivatives to have your own abilities to do financial planning, because that involves a lot of things. It involves tax planning and college for your kids, and every single one of you should have a revocable living trust. And those are the kinds of things you do work with the planner. Now, the second thing women need to know, no matter what your age, is that time is money. What you can't get, you can always get money back. You can always make money in the future, but you can never get your time back. And time leverages money in a very powerful way. So this is the most basic thing I'm going to tell you. So you know this, pass this on to your kids or someone in your office who's just starting out. This is a story I've used forever and ever. I'll go through it. It was in my very first book in the 80s, late 80s. The picture is really bigger than just these numbers. It's the savage truth on credit card debt, something that everyone can relate to. And the story is so old that the numbers are kind of small. I talked about, suppose you go out and charge $2,000 this month on your credit card. And maybe it was clothes, maybe it was dining out, maybe it was furniture, something like that. But it was a lot of things. But when you get the bill next month, you go, oh my goodness, $2,000. How did I do that? I can't pay that off. And you have a moment of panic. And then you see, oh my goodness, that's cool. I can make the minimum monthly payment. That's a very small amount. And suppose your finance charges are 19.8%. It was average back when I first started writing this story. It's average now, but many people in trouble are paying 28 or 29%. And suppose you pay an annual fee for the card or something like that of $40. So here's my question, because this is women in listed derivatives. You're very smart. How long will it take you to pay that off? See, so you are smart. Everybody said 3 years, 5 years. No, it will take you 31 years and 2 months to pay it off at the minimum monthly payments. Along the way, you'll pay $8,000. You charge $2,000, 4 times as much in interest. That is the power of time leveraging money very powerfully against you. Debt will bury you. And I know some of you still have student loan debt. I'm going to come to that, okay? But I wanted to make the opposite side of the coin in that story. So I would say, well, what if you invested the $2,000? And what would we put it in? Remember, this is going back a long time now. Oh, stock market mutual fund. And what would the average historical return, and don't you dare tell me 14% of the S&P 500. I put up there, and it is just about that. It's inched up a little bit because of the last few years, 10%. 10% with dividends reinvested. And we'll put it inside an IRA so there won't be any tax consequences. So the question is, what would that $2,000 grow to over the same 31 years where you're still paying off the furniture? And the answer is about $40,000. Several years into this, my son, who's now a financial honcho, said to me, Mom, you got to stop using that story. See, I'm with my son the way you are with your son. He said, that's not impressive. This is maybe 20 years ago. He said, Mom, that won't even buy an entry-level model of a BMW. Nobody's going to do that. So I said, you're right. That isn't impressive. Even though you could either be in the hole for $10,000 with interest or have $38,000, that's not impressive enough. So I went like this. Well, if you do it once, it's $38,000. But what if you did it every year for the next 31 years? So the last few years that only have a few years to grow, then you get a really interesting number, $364,000. And then I said, what if I got kids in their 20s? And remind you, I was doing this 25 years ago. So I didn't know that there was I just thought there was a 50-year time horizon because I was doing it myself. And I said, okay, what if you did it for 50 years? What would you have? I mean, you'd be 70. You don't even have to take money out of your IRA now till you're 72. Oh, now you've got $2.5 million. Thank you very much. Time is money. So pass it on to a 20-something, okay? Now, people at 20-something say, I hear them in the back of the room, they come to some of these things. What does she think she is? Where does she think we're getting paid? Why would we have an extra $2,000 a year to put in an IRA, okay? And then with $2,000 came about because back then that was a limit for an IRA. I said, wait a minute, I got an answer for them. It works out to be $38.46 a week. So enough with the lattes, okay? To $2.5 million, just being average, not beating the market, not using derivatives, not hedging, not using options, just socking it away in your 401k or your IRA.